We have the seminar from Sara Amoroso. Sara Amoroso, she's accompanying the DIW team. This is the German Socioeconomic Institute. That's right. So previously she was in the GRC from the European Commission. This is where we met the first time. Okay, today, well, she's in the, I think that you are as a researcher in the area in the fight of entrepreneurship, if I...
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Today you will present a paper related with NPS rates and government quality. I think that you are a little bit specializing in institutions, regulations. So I think that the most recent work is related to this file. Institutions apply to economics.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. Thanks a lot to myself for inviting me. Yes, as she said, let's say that I come from IO, industrial organization, and then in the last 2 to 3 years I started looking at the role of regulation in institutions. And so this is an extremely preliminary work. So I thought, let me bounce my ideas off you and let's see what you think of it. We just really finished whipping up the regressions, and I thought it would be a good idea to come here. And so today we're going to revisit the old question, how regulation affects entry, so business registration, let's call it like this. And we already know that that's, the general literature says that has a negative impact. But we'll revisit this relationship looking at the quality of local regulation. And so the other two are my co-authors. One is an ex-colleague from the GRC, and the other is he's working in the same department, the DIW. So first of all, I'm going to try to convince you that what I do matters. That's really important. And that the first step in trying to convince you that my research question and my research hypotheses are solid is to convince you that the cost of registering a business matter. And the reason why they matter is that most firms, most new enterprises are extremely small. So now we're used to hear the usual sentence, 9 out of 10 enterprises have less than 10 employees, right? This is the usual mantra, at least in the Eurostat portrays. But what the reality of it is that it's not just less than 10 employees. The majority, 82% of new firm entrants are actually 0 employees. So it's a couple of founders, on average 2 to 4. So let's say a couple of guys or girls, they have a business idea and they go and register the business idea, and for many reasons. People try to, I assume at the beginning they try to see if the idea works on the market, and then they go on and register. And so these are companies that are extremely small, as I said. And for this couple of founders that register their idea, the startup costs matter, right? It's not a construction company that comes with already 10 employees. For that kind of company, the 1,000, 2,000 euros to open, register a business, it won't matter. But for this type of firm, aka the majority of firms, the majority of entrants, the startup costs matter. So hopefully this is clear for now, but then let's have a look up what are these costs. And in particular, let's look at my sample. So these are the countries that I'm working with. Italy always provides the best case scenarios. So here I just ranked the countries in terms of entry cost, and the entry cost is expressed, this data comes from the World Bank. Entry cost is expressed as a percentage of per capita income. And so these costs are nationwide. So across the whole nation, Italy, Poland, and so on, the costs are always the same. There's some variation, for example, in Italy, there's some variation due to notary expenses, but these are nationwide costs, and that's key. So now, taking the case of Italy, I thought it was interesting to see what are these costs, what they're made of. The case of Italy is that on average it takes about 2,000 euros to open up a company, and depending on if you're lucky, 2 to 4 weeks. If you look online, it seems that there's some specialized companies that will make it happen for you within 1 week, but if you want to do it by yourself without paying extra, it will take 4 weeks. And there's a number of steps to go through. You need to create the statute, you need to incorporate, you need to pay the capital share, which can also be €1, that's not the bulk of the expense. You need to draft a contract, present it to the notary, and so on and so forth. There's so many steps, I'm not gonna go through them all, but there's several. And as you see, the last step, for fun, I call it luck with the local offices. So you need to, the IMSS, I don't know, probably none of you it's Italian, but there's IMSS is, for example, for the pension scheme, for the social security, the INAIL is for labor. Even if you don't have an employees, you still have to go through these institutions, these local offices. And the reason why I put luck is that the whole process, the whole procedure of opening a business may differ from province or from region to region. And luck can be exogenous or endogenous, meaning exogenous, you could be lucky to meet a very motivated public worker that day that will process your business registration in no time. Or unlucky, you meet somewhere. Or endogenous, meaning that you force or you make your own luck, meaning you know that public office is very busy, so you force your luck and you bribe the local officer. Which is, unfortunately, we're talking about Italy, so these things happen. You know, these are just anecdotal evidence. This is only needed for me to convince you of my hypothesis. Meaning the hypothesis is, the research hypothesis that we have the same regulation nationwide, but then the outcomes at regional level are different in terms of entry and in terms of how the regulation is applied. We know that the costs are the same throughout the whole country, but then, you know, the way regulation is applied can be different from region to region. And so the central hypothesis of this paper is that there is a moderating effect of the quality of government, and in particular the regional quality of government. And so, is this, I think, yeah. And so we're revisiting this impact. And so here, let me just put your mind at ease. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. The effect of regulation in terms of cost of entry is still going to be negative. The impact of regulation on regional entry rates is still going to be negative, meaning the more difficult in terms of money and time to register a business, the less I will be prone at the regional level to enter. That's for sure. We're not going to say anything different. That's true and it's been found. But what we really want to prove is that the way this negative impact is, so this negative impact is somehow moderated by the quality of government, meaning that in regions with a higher quality of government, maybe the negative effect is not so negative. So I hope this is the research hypothesis. I hope you're all with me. I hope I convinced you that this is interesting enough and is worth your time. And so now let me go and give you a little bit of perspective in terms of the literature, the background of what we're doing, and we start from everything. We start from the role of institutions in general and how many renowned scholars have looked at the role of institutions for economic development in general. And so this literature was started by Nobel Prize Douglas North, as if it's my friend. So by North, and there's this really nice book from Amoroso and Robinson, which is Why Nation Fails, that they look at the role of institution, in particular for economic development in developing countries. And in particular, they show, this is just the GDP per capita, income per capita, and they show that there is almost a one-to-one mapping between the GDP per capita, or the development, level of development, and their, let's call it quality of distribution. In particular, they talk about the difference between inclusive versus extractive distribution. So extractive distribution, say bad for the one that inclusive are those that and inclusive distribution are those that are more promoting innovation and growth. And if you see this, the color, I don't know if you can see, I cannot, so I hope you do. And now if we zoom in for the, let's say our interest, which is Europe, do you see the colors? Because I cannot, okay. For me it's all blur. So if you see, there's also somehow, I'm pretty sure that even if none of you is a macroeconomist, you have a general feeling of which countries and which regions in Europe are the richest, and you can imagine where institutions work the better and the best. And so, this is again the GDP per capita, I think in 2014 in Europe. And now remember, when you have the blue and when you have the red, in the next slide, I'm going to show you, for these regions, an index of quality of government at regional level. And so you will see some sort of, not a one-to-one mapping, but it's somehow similar. So, of course, Italy is always the best. This is the ranges, the largest range variation for the quality of regions. I don't remember what is F3, probably Calabria, south for sure. Spain as well, you have regions above and below the zero line. This is normalized indicator, but yeah, you have the usual suspects. You have Danish, Swedish, and Finnish region. At the top, there's not everyone very compact. All the regions are working so well, and then you have, let's say, the new entrants, the new member states, and the south of Europe, which is performing poorly. So if we put these two information together, meaning we put the GDP per capita and the quality of government, we see that there's a linear relationship, right? So you will see that regions that have a higher quality of government tend to perform better in terms of GDP per capita. So this is a part of literature has been extremely studied. So this is just to give you an overview of what this literature is about. And here we see that especially in macroeconomics or the economics of institution, many scholars have tried to look at the impact of institution on economic growth and economic development. So we have the neoclassical literature on top, where they take institution as somehow exogenous, such as manna from heaven, so they don't try to explain how institutions change, they just take it as static, and they see how they enter a model and explain economic growth. While the economic of institutions scholar, such as Amoroso and other colleagues, they try to explain how they endogenize the role of institution. In particular, they propose that economic institutions, which is what we're dealing with, are dependent from political institutions. And political institutions themselves are very difficult to change, because we experience this on a day-to-day basis, that political institutions tend to be, look at Italy for example, or the new wave of populism. They're difficult to change, but they can be changed somehow. Anyway, this is beyond the point, just for you to know that there's this two macro literatures, and one that is taking more, is becoming more popular is the latter. And so here, just to summarize, the role of institution is being shown that it has a strong impact on economic development. They have looked at from different angles, this relationship between economic growth and institutions, from government quality angle, between religion and culture, regulation and reform. And here, just if you're interested in this literature, these are just a few citations that are worth looking into. In particular, I would say the work of Amoroso is probably too much, so we'll focus on Laborda. I think it's a very nice paper. Anyway, a very interesting, related to this talk, a very interesting spin-off of this literature is the one on firm entry. In particular firm entry, is seen as a key element in economic development. And so there's this seminal paper of Jankov and Laporte and so on and so forth, that they looked at the regulation of entry. It's a purely descriptive paper where they take about 85, I think, countries, and they compile all the costs, and they find out that there is a negative relationship between deregulation and in particular corruption and entry. So the more regulated and corrupted a country is in terms of the procedure to enter, the lower the entry rates in the country. So this is being done at the country. And so, as I said, this is a country level, and it's purely descriptive. It's not, they don't do any regression, they don't do any empirical analysis. And so the next paper in line, which is one of the most cited, is the paper from Klapper and colleagues, that they look at the effect of regulation on firm entry. And they do a regression, they find that in particular startup costs have a negative effect. And so this is, again, another seminal paper where they find that regulation in terms of cost and procedure and all the let's say, the formal part of the regulation has a negative impact on entry. They focus mainly on ex-Soviet Union countries for this study, but let's say that there's the literature on Klapper didn't include every single paper, because at some point the literature stopped on this because it was clear. There was no confusion, there was no duality or any trade-off, it was clear. So the effect of regulation on entry is negative. And so the rest of the literature that is interesting because it opens up more research question is the one that looks at the role of institutions. So no more formal regulation, but look at different aspects of institution, in particular corruption. Corruption is an interesting animal because it seems that, for example, Belitsky and Baer, so this lower paper, they find that somehow corruption mitigates the effect of the negative effect of regulation. Meaning, for example, Belitsky with the OECD, at the country level, with the OECD countries, they find that taxes are bad for firm entry, but if you know someone, so if you know someone and the environment is corrupted, then somehow it mitigates the negative effect of taxes. And the paper that I cited before this Dreher investment, again at the national level, they find that they mitigate the entry cost in terms of number of procedure. The example of Italy, right? So the procedure is too many, but I give a bribe or I know someone, so the corrupted environment somehow speeds up. And so there's this kind of different kind of corruption is always being thought to be bad, but in some cases it can actually mitigate the negative effect of regulation. All these studies of corruption, however, are at national level. Then we have some just recently. So if you see these two papers, 22 and 2019, started to become more recent because there is a more availability of data at regional level. In particular, Corradini look at the role of social trust from some European social survey, I think. How much do we trust each other in society? Basically, that's the question that they ask. And the quality of government, which is the indicator I'm going to use, which is at the regional level. And they find that social trust is a mitigator effect, meaning that as the economic conditions worsen, if we trust each other so much, and also the quality of government is an indicator, then the regional entry rates are not, they tend to go up. Then also Desai and others find that fairness, in particular, fairness as in how fairly allocated are the public resources is positively related to entry. So in terms of quality of distribution, fairness is seen as I think we want to keep it open at this point. Fairness is a positive component because there are different dimensions of the quality of government. So corruption is seen as a negative quality and fairness is seen as a positive quality. And so fairness is always, they show that fairness and the enforcement of property rights seem to have a positive effect on aggregate entry rates. And then finally, the study of Agostino and colleagues, they use an Italian quality of government index. They find that in the southern regions, what really matters for entry rate is the enforcement of law, so the rule of law. While in the northern provinces, central north, what matters is the quality of government. So the quality of government is only relevant for entry rate when things are working well. While at the south, it really a matter of whether they're able to enforce the law, which I thought was interesting. So this is somehow where we're standing. There's not much literature in this. In particular, we will look at similar to this paper, which take different dimension of the quality of government. We take the quality of government at regional level, and so far no one has done it for all European regions and at a regional level. The majority of the study are at country level, and the few that are at regional level either take only Italy or they look at a specific part, which is the social trust. So what we do, we use a pseudo panel data. I say pseudo because we take the region sector per type. So the per region sector is my panel. And we do a dynamic panel data model where I have that entry rate as in the number of firm entry over the total population depends on the past entry rate, the past exit rate. And then I have two dimensions of the cost of entry. One is the cost, as we saw before, the percentage of per capita income, and time in terms of number of days it takes me to enter the market. And then this, of course, is the other variable of interest, of course, is the quality of government, which I will use both as independent regressive, but also as, of course, as an interaction effect. And then I use a bunch of control variables, which are interesting per se, but for now, let's say that just for you to not go through in detail in the literature why all these control variables are interesting and important to include. Don't trust me on this, so we include the labor market flexibility, meaning how easy it is to hire and fire my employees, if I have any. The indirect product market regulation, so how the regulation in, for example, electricity, telecommunication, and transport is affecting my industry due to input and output trade. The access to finance, this is usually an important one for entry, and then the availability of human capital. Here I use the share of scientists and engineers, but I already use also the share of tertiary educated people would work just fine. And then of course the growth of GDP per capita, and then all possible dummies. And I assume that everything is endogenous, so there's no predetermined variable in this case. Unfortunately, all my variables are endogenous, just the dummies. So the identification strategy, I did my best. So in a dynamic panel data model, the standard in this case is to use the system GMM. And so I have two ways of identifying the model. One is using classical GMM instruments, meaning I take the second and third time lags of all the endogenous variables. And the other, just for fun, I thought to instrument, I wanted to come up with my own instrument. So I wanted to instrument the quality of government, which is a very difficult variable because it tends to be very persistent over time. You know, it's like quality of government institution, they're very slow to change. Now, this is not political institutions, which are almost the same over 20 years span. These are economic institutions, so there is some variety, but still they're very persistent. And so I wanted to help my econometric model, and so I use the life expectancy, meaning that my hypothesis is that the life expectancy is somehow related to the quality of government. So quality of government and life expectancy going hand in hand, but the life expectancy has not so much to do with the fermentary rate at the regional level. So that's in any case, I use both, so you can see now, for example, results. Data, so all the data is public, so this study is completely, if you want to reproduce my results, feel free. So I use the share of entry and exit from the structural business statistics, I think it's called like this, so SDS Eurostat. The quality of government data comes from these people, Ciarrone, Puente Armoni, that they've been working on this data since 2010. It's an index that is not available for every year, unfortunately. It's only available for 2010, 13, 17, and 21. So what I did, between my final, as you see here, my final is 2008 and 2018. So I did two trials. One, I just assumed that from 2008 to 2010 and after, so that there's a step in the values of the quality of government, or I do interpolation. And in any case, there's not much difference between the two ways of interpreting the data, so imputing the data, let's say. The cost and the number of days to start a business, they come from the World Bank. The labor market flexibility and access to capital, they also come from the World Economic Forum, so similar. So from at country level. Also forgot to say here that the cost and to start a business are also at country level. So my only regional data is the entry rate, the quality of government, and the human. No, that's it. I only have these two variables at regional level. The majority of the other variables are either country only or country sector. And sector here is an aggregate sector, so section A, B, C. C is manufacturing, so the whole manufacturing sector all together, in case you're thinking of some question at some point. Just for your sector, I say I have sectors, but I only have macro sectors. The European quality of government is focusing on three pillars. I use the aggregate quality of government, but in theory I would use the three pillars based on corruption, efficiency, and quality. As I said, this is public data that is available from government and university. I'll go a little bit faster, I think. I don't know. 30 minutes, yeah, probably. Here, this is, I don't know if you can see, but it doesn't matter if you don't see exactly the, this is Austria, Czech Republic, and so on. This is just to show, so the 45 degrees line is just to show which region improved. So if a region is on the left side of the 45 degrees line, it improved. So the quality of government decreased over time. And if you see, almost everyone decreased over time. So here you have 2010 and 2017. So in 2010, the quality of government in Austria was higher than in 2017. The only regions that improved are some of the regions in the new member states, namely in particular Poland and Czech Republic. Those are the couple of countries I have in my sample which had an increase in the quality of government. However, things go better. This data is only until 2017, but then it's outside our sample, but in 2021, let me assure you that some of the old member states, they catch up in terms of quality of government. Not all, but there's so many, this is just for sake of completeness, there's so many other indicators of quality of government used in the literature. There is the World Governance Indicator, which is the World Bank, which is the basis of the regional quality of government, which I'm using this one. It's called EQI originally. I call it QOG, but this is the original acronym, the European Quality of Government Index, I think it's called. But anyway, this index is a regionalization version of this other index, which is only a country level. Then I have the Italian one, the Italian Quality Index. institutional quality index, I think it's called. And then there's the macroeconomists, or institutional economists, which have used some sort of function to approximate the institutional quality. So they don't observe the institutional quality per se, but they use a function of different variables such as human capital, geographical and historical variable to come up with a functional form of what the institution looks like. Just to give you a background of what can be done, I thought it was interesting for you to know, if you don't know this literature, what other things you can use to approximate institutional quality. So in terms of key variables for this regression, I thought it would be interesting to show the entry, exit, the cost, the number of days, and the product market regulation and hire fire. So this is the last one is how easy it is to get rid of my employees or to hire them and fire them. And I took the averages by the average quality of government of the region. So these are all the regions with high quality of government, with medium and low quality of government. Some of the average makes sense and they're quite obvious, such as, for example, well, the entry cost it goes up, so in low quality of regions it's more expensive to enter. And it takes longer, so it takes an average of 20.7 days compared to 12.1. So the entry rate, however, there's no statistical difference. So I didn't report the significance, but I will tell you that it actually seems to be higher in lower quality regions, but the difference is not statistically relevant. Well, the exit it is. So it seems that in high quality regions, the exit is lower. And in particular, I didn't show here, but in the last part of my period, the exit rates in the high quality region goes down. And this is something that we're trying to figure out at the macroeconomic, what does it mean?
Sara?
Yes?
One question from these figures. Quality of government, entry and exit, they are at regional level?
Quality of government is at the regional level. So these are high quality of government regions. Yeah. These are regions, right? So these are average per region in the whole period.
And the entry cost and the number of days and the product.
That's at population.
This is at country level.
Yeah. Correct. Correct. So the regressions. So here these are, as I said, GMM. I just wanted to show us stepwise regression, just to show you how my variable behaves when I include all my control variables versus when I'm not. And then also for sake of completeness, I report in the last column a fixed effect, upon a fixed effect, to see how it would perform vis-a-vis the system GMM, which there's not much difference anyway. So in general, I see that the entry and exit rate have the usual effect. In particular, past entry has a positive effect, as well as exit. These two variable entry and exit are well known to be positively related. The quality of government. These are the two types of imputation. So one is this, I keep it steady throughout the years, and the other I do the interpolation. So more or less, they give me the same results. And then here I put all my control variables, which vary. Some of it vary a little bit, but nothing of concern. At least the signs stay. So they have the expected signs. So more label flexibility in terms of how I hire or fire as a positive effect. Product market regulation has a negative effect. Access to capital has in general a positive effect. The growth of GDP per capita and human capital have a positive effect. And human capital is one of the highest impact, in fact, for entry, which I thought was interesting. And this is assuming that you don't see them in the table, but they're there. All the controls I previously shown, just to zoom in to the interaction effect of my interest, is that here I have that the same regression before, by introducing the entry cost as we expected. This is, so the column 1 just reproduce what is being done. So entry costs have a negative impact, and a very strong one at that. So they have a very strong negative impact on the entry rates. And here I did the interact, and the number of days as well, they're negative, but not so negative. So there seem to be the let's say new firm and new entrants are more susceptible to the cost, not so much. So they value their time less than the cost. And this makes sense if you go back to the idea of that the majority of firms are a couple of founders. Probably have. One thing I forgot to control, and I will still have to, is to the degree of unemployment. Controlling for unemployment will give me more information on this, because if there's a lot of unemployment, I would expect this to hold even more true, right? So if you're unemployed, the value of your time is not so strong, and so the cost in fact is very high. So imagine I already did control for unemployment. I did not. But this is the first round and I'm presenting to you, so in the meantime I was thinking, I should control for unemployment, because this story holds very well if I control for unemployment. And in terms of interaction effect, I see exactly what I suspected. So my hypothesis is confirmed, meaning that the entry cost is still negative, but the negative effect is offset by the quality of government. And if I can show you the picture, this is what I'm talking about. So you see, this is the negative, this is the marginal effect of entry cost for the quality of government. So these are the regions with the quality of government that is low, and these are the regions with the quality of government is high. So now this is still negative, but it's less negative than this. Meaning that somehow, if the quality of government, if there is less corruption, if there's more fairness, if the government, if the local administration and the quality of local administration works well, costs are going to still be affecting my entry rates at regional level, but not so much. So the costs are not perceived. And we don't find evidence for the number of days. So the interaction effect is not important. So that's about it, I think. I'm just concluding with this. In terms of diagnostics, if you're interested, so the dynamic model is confirmed in the sense that the autoregressive order 1 is applicable, and the test for autoregressive 2 is rejected, means that I was justified in using the second and third lab as instruments. And also the set the set of variables that I assume they're endogenous is confirmed, so everything is endogenous, unfortunately. So the key takeaways, we show that by itself, more quality of government is conducive to, is related to higher entry shares, which is something that is partially being said by 2 papers so far at regional level. We find that entry costs are indeed a barrier to firm entry, but this barrier is somehow mitigated by the role of quality of government. And so in terms of policy implication, we think that the institutional quality is the often unspoken barrier to fair competition. So everyone talks about competitiveness and how to incentivate firm entry, and from this policy discussion, the one thing that is missing is indeed the quality of government. We think that this is something that should enter the policy discussion a little bit more. And so even though we acknowledge that in the last 20 or 30 years, the regulation, there is a huge attempt, at least in the European Commission, to simplify the regulation. There's this refit, for those that there's this refit initiative. There's a concrete effort when designing regulation to try to simplify the regulation for firms, and especially for firms and for business. But we think that things could be done better. And in any case, for sure, the simplified regulation per se is not enough. The most important thing is to understand who applies the regulation. So, and in particular, the question that we are left with is how to increase the quality of government. So we know that the Commission is doing their best to simplify the complexity of regulation. That's kind of somehow easy to do. You take better lawyers, but how do you increase the quality of government? So in terms of limitations, many things are left to do. The one I thought about is I just said before, I didn't write down, controlling for unemployment, unpacking the 3 dimensions of quality of government, in particular corruption, because it seems to be very relevant according to the literature that I mentioned before. And then the other one is, I don't have data for this sample, but one important one would be controlling for industry concentration or the average physical capital. For the reason that if a sector it's very physical capital intensive, probably entry costs will not be that, they won't matter too much. The example again of construction sector. In construction sector, you will not have so many small players, small entrants, and even if they're small, probably because that sector is very physical capital intensive, they will have the capital to enter. And then here we use OECD data instead of Eurostat, simply because the Eurostat seems to change their data from year to year, from survey to survey. Whoever worked with Eurostat data will know how the quality is not the best. That's it. Thank you. If you have questions.
Yeah. Interested also in the role of the dispersion in this quality of the government.
Yeah.
At the macro level, country level, could play also a very interesting role, because imagine in Italy that you have a huge disparity between north and south. Couldn't be that some entrepreneurs in the south are moving to the north and opening their business?
That's an interesting one, but I don't observe, yeah, for sure. But I'm not very familiar with entrepreneurial migration. But if I heard someone presenting, and it's not a huge share. So the majority of people are actually staying local. The multinational they were talking about, such a tiny amount of firms that are multinational. This paper is not relevant for plus how many firms enter and register as multinationals.
No, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, you were thinking about migration, of course. Unfortunately, I don't have data on this. It's also a different focus of this. It's a good point for sure. I'm sure that at least within the nation, I would imagine, but even then, I think we think with our own heads because we are all prone to relocate very easy. So I am Italian, I studied abroad, and I'm living in another country. So for me, the idea was like, oh, here regulation sucks. Oh, here the quality of government sucks. I go to another region. I go to another country. For me, it's easy. But the majority of people, they have their family, they have their roots. So we are the minority, the extreme minority. So, and that's true also for firms. At least that's what I heard and saw in other presentations.
When you say that the costs are more important than the number of days, how did you conclude that?
So the reason why I was thinking before that I didn't control for unemployment. So considering that the first graph I showed you at the beginning, where the majority of these new entrepreneurs or new enterprises, are just teeny with no employees, so very teeny. One thing that I cannot see, but I want to see, is that this is forced entrepreneurship, it's a necessity entrepreneurship, which is I'm unemployed and I try to open a bar or what have you. And for that type of entrepreneurship, the cost of entry it's much more relevant compared to the number of days. Because if I'm employed, I have an unlimited amount, relatively unlimited amount of time, but the cost is something that I don't have financial resources. Maybe I don't have family, maybe I don't have friends.
But that's your interpretation, or that's what you see from the table?
No, this is my speculation, of course, this is not what I see.
So off of the table you get the results that the number of days is less important than the entry cost.
This is the pure magnitude of number of days. It is true that it's not in the same scale. The number of days is number of days.
So don't you need the
I would have to
min-max variation or
yes,
standard deviation of the numbers in order to compare?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what kind of relation?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the thing is that here you would interpret the number of days as an additional number of days reduces the entry rate by 0.04 percentage points.
Yeah. That's
Yes, well, then you
so
can
if it's
say 10
days,
days.
or if it takes 1 month, you have to
10
multiply
days.
this by
Yeah,
30.
you're right.
So that's a huge impact.
Yeah, you're right.
So you should, I think,
I was
what's the
too quick
relation
to think.
to the duration of the data, to the mean value, and to the standard deviation, to see how much the impact of this is between one region that is at the first standard deviation, one that is above the mean, right? So that you can see, and you should do this probably with all estimates in order to get it.
Sometimes when you're done with the estimation, then I completely, you're right, because I completely forgot that the scale, so all my variables are 0 to 100, except the number of days. And in my mind, I just forgot, so I interpret everything as 0 to 100, but you're absolutely right. So I will have to scratch what I said, but in any case, it still will hold to include the unemployment and actually check for the unemployment rate and interact the unemployment rate with the number of days to see if my idea is correct, meaning that the unemployment rate will somehow interact with the number of days, meaning that the time has less negative impact for the share of population that is unemployed somehow.
But including the unemployment rate, you somehow expect that most founders are people who are unemployed before.
Unfortunately, I cannot. Just remember that these are all aggregate rates at regional level. So the flavor and the interpretation I'm doing somehow is at firm level or entrepreneurial level, but I cannot. I don't observe this is at regional level.
How much is my expectation will be that most founders are not people who are unemployed?
No. There's just a share of the entrepreneurship which would be necessity, but it's not all, of course. And some of them would be serial, some people will be registering just for the third, fourth time, trying to, I don't know, I don't have, the idea as a follow-up, unfortunately we don't have, there's no such data at the European level on entrepreneurial decision. The only one is this GAM, which is being used by one of the papers, the only papers I talked, which is a firm level, this one, the first one, which is a firm level, and they focus on the size of government because they think that government spending is always seen as a good thing, more spending, more entry, but actually show that it's negative because the size of government is somehow linked to corruption. So the bigger the spending, the more inefficiency in the spending and the more rent-seeking of bureaucrats, and so in the end they justify the size of the government spending as that has a negative impact on firm entry at the firm level. And they use this GAM. And so my idea was, as a next step, as a continuation of this paper, to use firm level, because I think it would be very interesting to be able to distinguish, this necessity and entrepreneurship versus, it would be interesting,
Okay, thank you very much.